So this talk is it's one I recorded yesterday. I'm just going to do a little intro. It's about, it doesn't really get going until the end. So yeah, I don't know, skip through it if you need to. It's kind of all over the place, but I do think it's kind of important. The basic idea is that we need to focus more on being more emotionally mature and dealing with our pain. And I bring up Donald Trump a lot because he's just such a clear example of acting out childhood pain on a global scale. You know, this need to dominate, the idea that the world is a dangerous place, nature is dangerous, people are out to get you, they're going to take all your stuff, competition is the only way, and just, you know, trample on anybody who threatens your place in the world, zero tolerance for cooperation, like that whole thing. That's basically what this talk is about. It's all over the place. I apologize, but there are some nuggets in there. So, you know, put this on in the background while you're washing some dishes or something. Like, don't pay too much attention to it, and just notice, like, there are some nuggets that come out. And that's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm working on the one thing. Like, the one thing is a Gary Keller book. You know, what's the most important thing that's going to move my life forward, or make everything else easier and unnecessary. So making these talks are just keeping my creative juices flowing. I hope they're useful for you. Without further ado, talk about why developing our emotional bodies and helping our man in the world with theirs, and kind of all the ground and foundation of that. Yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think if you get through it. So today's talk is about why policies, you know, politics and policies are second to personality and wounds and traumas and personal development. I guess we just got to start with Donald Trump because he's the one who's basically controlling the world right now. You know, so interesting. He decides to put 145% tariff on Chinese goods, and then decides to drop it down to 30%, and you know, basically brings the whole world to the brink of economic collapse, or at least the United States, and most of the rest of the world, and then, you know, presses a button and turns it back to normal. And you know, I've interviewed a Harvard graduate, successful author, and I watch a lot of the videos of the last generation's Harvard graduates. They're all in their like 60s, and they're writing books like you know, Jordan Peterson types and Arthur Brooks, those kind of people. And I've noticed that there's this tendency in that world of intellect to somehow discount personal psychology from policy. And it's totally wrong. I'm just going to say that. It's wrong. You know, if you look at the Donald Trumps of the world, or the Jordan Petersons, or you know, anybody for that matter, right or left, what you're going to see is their emotional body. Because that's the other sort of piece about this talk, which I want to say is, you know, the reason you can't, that policy is secondary to personal development, is that emotion runs everything. You know, the reason that the Donald Trumps of the world do everything that they do, and basically you and I do everything that we do, is because it feels right. People have this funny idea that, oh, if something didn't feel good, why do I keep doing it? That means therefore that my emotions don't run me. That's not how it works. So how it works is like you need to feel consistent. I need to feel consistent. Donald Trump needs to feel consistent. He needs to feel like his identity is justified. So whether or not that identity causes you pain or causes others pain is kind of irrelevant. Basically, as you riff through all of the information and the ideas and the pains and pleasures of your life, you're going to start building this, or you do build this, I'm going to call it like a righteous body of beliefs. And that body of beliefs that supports your sort of righteous identity, it's what controls you. So you don't really, there's this people, we think that we're in charge of everything, but really what's in charge is this mishmash of ideas that holds up a sense of self. And in some ways that's entirely necessary. But in other ways, it's kind of like what's really missing in Western culture is the acknowledgement of the wisdom traditions in which we have to initiate elders in our world who can transcend that. I'm not claiming to be one of those people, but I'm working at it. I'm constantly, I don't want to say constantly, but to the degree that I can, I put myself through initiations to help me transcend those parts of myself that are just my righteous identity holding on to something so that I feel good about myself. I know when I'm on track, when I do something that somehow in my heart feels like the right thing to do, but it hurts. That's the interesting thing, is that usually when you're doing this stuff, when you're going down the path of deconstructing the incongruent or harmful parts of yourself, there's an emotional pain attached to that. So back to this idea of policy versus personality and how it doesn't really matter. So, this idea, oh my goodness, I'm where I want to be. Okay. I guess I'm just going to stop right now. Oh, really? I guess I'm going to go up a little bit higher. So I think what's really interesting is, the people who, let me see if I can say this. There's people who just say like, oh, it's just Donald Trump and he's just like that, and he's just kind of doing his thing, and it doesn't really matter, and whatever that sort of thing is that people say. I don't know if this talk's really going to go anywhere because I don't really have time to finish it up. I'll try to restart it. It's difficult for me to restart these talks. I guess my point is, what do you need to hear about this? Start focusing on how you can help others help others transform and transcend their emotional pain. I don't want to call it trauma because trauma is an overused word, and people get into like trauma dumping, and just it's super lame actually, what a lot of people do around trauma. But what the Donald Trump's, he's such an easy example. He lives out his childhood trauma, in which nature and the world is not a safe place and other people are not safe. And so therefore we need to crush anyone who disagrees with us. So you cannot have tolerance. There's no such thing as tolerance for someone like Donald Trump. Now, why is that? That is because he sees tolerance as weakness, and he sees tolerance as a threat. So he cannot have people of diverse viewpoints live in his question. He can't be challenged in his ideas. Man, and that's what we need more than anything else. We need like a Ray Dalio, and a Ray Dalio would talk about radical open-mindedness, where you're doing, he says this great thing. He says, when there's two people who disagree with each other, one person is most likely wrong, and you want to find out if you're that person. Now, a person like Donald Trump doesn't do that. And how so many people have been seduced into this idea, thinking that someone who doesn't question themselves is an appropriate leader. Like, they're going to make the right choices and they don't even question their assumptions. They don't even question whether they're on the right path. I understand it. I understand it, because they think that they're fighting against an enemy and they have to hold this as their best option, but it does lead to ruin. And yeah, well, anyways, it's a wild ride, man. Let's stick together. Let's stick together, and let's make this world a better place. Let's become wise elders in our communities, and from the ground up, build a wise elder, nature loving. We have to all come to learn how nature is truly holding us up. What's happening right now is people are controlling the world who don't understand that nature is the ground of everything that you have. It all starts with the mother encompassing the energy, and then civilization is built inside of that. We've got these people that think that civilization is everything and nature is secondary. Doesn't work that way. Another way I've been thinking about it is this, like, I don't have a problem with Judeo-Christian Islam. I don't have a problem with those religions, but you got to understand those religions are born of a desert ecology. Those are desert ecology religions. What are they doing? They're desertifying the planet. They're going to take away. So all those other cultures that didn't have that sort of warrior band together ethos where we fight off everybody else. I mean, there's lots of other warrior cultures too. But the ones that have kind of dominated the planet now, I guess they don't entirely dominate the planet. There are some other cultures that are dominating the planet. So I can't blame it on Judeo-Christian Islamic ideologies. But right now in America, that's what's relevant, because those ideologies are desert ideologies. And so here's an idea which I think really we need to think about. Joseph Campbell really delved into this a lot, and I'm trying to build on this idea. Cultures evolve inside of an ecosystem. And so the different ecosystems of the planet had different cultures associated with them. And now what we have is a desert ecosystem culture that's sort of spread out through the world and trying to spread out desert stuff that's appropriate for a desert environment and desertifying the rest of the planet. Not appropriate. Not going to work. It's going to, create a desert planet. Or it's going to try to create a desert planet, and then something else is going to get created in the process. But yeah, we really need to honor each ecosystem and build a culture within each ecosystem, and then learn how to tolerate one another, and then build a global culture that sort of holds its subcultures, that basically says we're all earthlings, and we have this ethnic diversity and this cultural diversity and religious diversity and economic diversity. All economies don't need to be built of the same structure. Wow, man. Interesting. Okay. Peace out. Okay, so part 2 about why personality is more important than policy. There's also a great saying in the Silicon Valley world that, give me the right team, and even if I have the wrong product, it'll all work out. If I have the right product and the wrong team, it's not going to work out at all. And there's also another saying, this is what kind of drives me bananas about this sort of more left-wing ideologies. And although I'm a major environmentalist and a major advocate of cultural tolerance and diversity, I would say in every other way I'm very conservative. So I reject the binary idea that there's left and right. And actually, this is a great thing. I think more people, nobody talks about this, but this is something that when I was studying politics, economics, international politics, and economics in the 90s, in the early 90s, late 80s, it became very clear to me that the two-party system does not work. The two-party system is not, it's not a natural system. It doesn't really exist in nature. I mean, I guess it exists in nature in sort of the, well, I can't say that's true. There's a male and female, that would be the polarity of nature, black and white, good and evil. So I guess that's true. In a certain sense, the two-party system is a reflection of, you know what it is? It's a very good reflection of what I was talking about earlier, this idea of the Middle Eastern good versus evil, biblical, all of those religious ideologies that stem from the same root. I think that's really important to acknowledge. People really get mad at me when I say that, but you have to acknowledge all of those religions, they come out of the same place. They all emerge from the same culture, the same time, similar times, the same environments, the same struggles. They all sort of popped out of that world. And in that world, the inflection is on good versus evil, and then it's the complete death of the complete killing off of the goddess, Earth Mother, as a powerful spiritual entity. So those are the main tenets of which we carry into the world these days. Good versus evil, and no good, positive Earth power, Earth goddess energy. That's negative. So if you look at all of so I'm drifting into mythic ideology, woo, look at that. Yeah, woo! It's a couple of guys on a tandem bike. That's cool. You don't see that very often. This is Drake biking area where I'm at. So easily distracted. So the Earth goddess ideology has been killed off in Middle Eastern traditions. And it's super important to recognize that all the religions that are dominant today, the Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, especially in America, that those religions stem from a common root. And that common root is of, herder warrior people that defeated fertile valley farmer people. I'm going to say that again because it's not appreciated to the degree that it should. If you consider yourself a fertile valley farmer type, you're of one of these other religions, go ahead. I mean, you're going to get pissed at me. You're going to, but self-reflection is where it's at, man. Question things. Those cultures, starting with Judaism and Islam and Christianity, all herder cultures. So if you're a cattle rancher, well then, that makes sense. You're a herder culture. But if you live sedentary in a fertile valley and grow stuff, you were like the Canaanites. You were the people that were defeated by these warrior herder tribes. And those warrior herder tribes bring with them their ideology, which is very distinct and different from a agricultural fertile valley ideology. So that culture and ideology of a fertile valley, here's the thing, the desert herder cultures are constantly in struggle and battle with the natural environment and with each other and with others that they come into contact with. Constant expansion and conflict. And in a lot of ways, I've been thinking about this recently, empire is a fucking unfortunate evil, because if we all still lived in city states, I don't know how that would work, in some ways, I kind of wish it was that way, where we had more autonomy. And that's another way why I reject this sort of bipolar divide between conservative and liberal. You know, I'm very liberal on a lot of things and very conservative on some other things. So, for example, when it comes to self-determination and local rule, like I'm pretty damn conservative on most realms. You know, but then there's always a dynamic tension too, because how do you locally control the air? Because the air is global. How do you locally control the water cycle? Because the water cycle is global. How do you locally control the pollution cycle? Because the pollution cycle is global. How do you locally control the carbon cycle? Because the carbon cycle is global. You just can't do it. That's why, you know, I mean, so if you're on the, and then, you know, locally, yeah, we should control the, you know, the fire, how we mitigate our fire, how we mitigate our local resources, you know, all of that stuff, you know, and then, you know, right now the Endangered Species is under attack. The Endangered Species Act is under attack by just changing one simple rule. They want to change the definition of the word harm. If you make a species go extinct, that's global. You can't have a parochial local solution to something that is global. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be pretty nuanced because, you know, the needs of the community versus the needs of the salamander. I don't know. You know, I mean, I don't know. How do you solve that? It's not black and white. You know, we got to get away from this simple lies, strong, simple lies. Whew. Obfuscate the clear, the unclear, complex truth. Don't be seduced by the simple lies. Truth is complex. I mean, just, you know, nature is God. Nature is God. God is nature. Nature is not separate from God. What is nature? Whoo, is it complex? What are you? You are nature. Woo, are you complex? Man, taking it down to the cellular, the molecular, I mean, we're so advanced in our understanding of things, but we still are just barely understanding the complexity of the systems that we live within. Do not be seduced by the simple truth. Both sides, doesn't matter, left or right. You still get seduced by the simple truth. It's complex. Everything's connected to everything, and there's not black and white answers, you know? We really need a wisdom culture. And, you know, I heard recently that, oh my God, I guess Gavin Newsom's going to try to run for president. And that's the last thing we need. We don't need another, like, hard, polarizing figure in office. What we need is somebody to get in there. I want Ray Dalio to run for president, although he never will. But, you know, I want someone in the Oval Office who's going to say, man, how do I find out whether I'm wrong right here? What a concept. You know, even left and right, I mean, I think clearly I think Obama was better at that. Biden, I don't know. He seemed a little bit sort of rigid in his thinking. But wow. I don't know. It seems like most presidents kind of lose or don't have an ability to admit that they're wrong. I don't know, maybe it's something about going for that level of power. But man, that's what I want to see. I want to see a president like get up on the public stage and say, you know, we spent these billions of dollars and we made all these policy decisions, and then we realized that was the wrong move. And now we're going to do everything we can do to try to fix it. Wow, what would that be like? God, that'd be so awesome to actually see that we could have some honest, courageous people who were willing to be hit with the negative feelings of everyone. I mean, you know, God, you got to be so emotionally strong to do something like that, because the kind of hate that you're going to get from people is going to be just through the roof. You know, it's interesting. Someone like a Donald Trump, the way he deals with hate is with more hate. You know, I like the John F. Kennedy style of dealing with hate, of like trying to find a place where we all, I think the truth of the matter is someone like John F. Kennedy, who was, an amazing leader and brought us away from the brink of nuclear war, not towards it. How, he was dealing with a lot of emotional pain, and he had all kinds of issues, right? Nobody's perfect. But he was dealing with his emotional pain. I don't know, maybe not dealing with it in a great way, but he had to deal with emotional pain, whereas somebody like Donald Trump doesn't deal with emotional pain. So this is circling back. I think your emotional body is everything. The way that you handle your emotions is everything. And if you handle your emotions in a way that's deflecting or blaming, or you're handling your emotions in a way in which you're self-loathing, you're going to make the world a worse place. So, somebody like Donald Trump, who is deflecting emotions, that's what he does. He deflects negative emotions, pushes them out on other people. And, I'm sorry to say, all you guys out there, it's mostly guys, the ladies too, if you're just like, oh my God, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, most likely you're deflecting emotional pain, and you're just hurting other people, and you've probably been doing it for a long time, and you're gonna hate on me because you're not gonna wanna hear that, but that's what you gotta deal with. You gotta deal with all of the emotional stuff that you have. Oh, there's a new house for sale. You got to deal with all of the pain that you've inflicted on others. I was doing transformational workshops back in the late 90s. That's the first thing that when I noticed the structure, because I've always been very interested in the structure of how people can change. That's what I noticed was the thing that actually had people change. If you get in deep, or if these other people say, I don't know how to get anybody else to do it, you got to have a willingness. And I really don't know how to get other people to have a willingness, other than, maybe we could collectively help people see that the pain that they're causing others is causing themselves pain. I don't know how you do that. I don't know if you could ever get somebody like a Donald Trump to approach his childhood wound and see why he has to blame so many other people for what's going on, for the pain that he feels in his life. I wish we could, but I don't know how we would do that. Yeah, so that's the hard truth. The hard truth is that we mask our emotional pain in various different ways. And the more you mask it, the more you have the potential to hurt others. So I would say to all my friends on the political left that more importantly than, this is weird to say, more importantly than fighting Donald Trump, what you need to do, and what I'm going to practice doing too, is you got to figure out, you got to work on dealing with your emotional pain head on. Where are you still blaming others for the way the world is? Or where are you not taking responsibility for how you show up in the world? Excuse me, but making it somebody else's fault? I wish I had a good example of that. I don't at the moment. But yeah, so to my friends on the left, that's what I have to say, is that we need to have a spiritual reckoning. There's a great saying. What is that saying? It's Marcus Aurelius. The greatest triumph is to not become like your enemies. That's why I think a Gavin Newsom is absolutely the wrong choice for a liberal president candidate. It needs to be someone who's more wisdom-based and who could look Donald Trump in the eyes with empathy and say like, wow, bro, must fucking hurt to be you. Man, I know you're feeling like you're doing a lot of good stuff, but I can see that pain. And I want you to feel peace in your heart, and I hope you can find that, because that's the thing. We got to help every man who's feeling pain in their heart find that peace in their heart, and find that, you know, gosh, not just peace in heart, but we do need the physical stuff too. I mean, we all need all the opportunities and possibilities in our life. Like, those are all super important. But I do think, like, if you've got the spiritual and the psychological wellness thing down, you're not gonna act out. You're gonna be a better human, you know. It's really interesting, you know, there's a lot of guys that I grew up with who have turned into hardcore Trumpers. I'm not talking about my close friends. In case you're watching this, I'm talking about other guys. And these guys that have become hardcore Trumpers, most of them were fucking assholes when I grew up. They were super hardcore jerks. And they had some, like, there must have been some, you know, pain that was going on in their life that caused them, or their abusive fathers or something that caused them to be so just really mean, you know, really just didn't care about other human beings. And so there's a pain in there that needs to be addressed. Like, there's a need in men in our culture, in every culture, to feel powerful. So we have to help these. So here's the thing, like, you don't fight Donald Trump. Fight that need in men to feel powerful by dominating another human being. Help them find power within themselves that doesn't require the domination of another. That's the path of Jesus Christ, the path of Buddha, the path of Arjuna. That's what the world needs right now. We need a wisdom culture that helps men find their power without hurting another. It is true Christianity, which is not practiced. This whole, like, I just have faith in the word of the Bible is God, that's bullshit. That's not what Jesus preached. I know that that's what was canonized in the year 400, so that's all that we see when you look at those texts. But Jesus taught, love thine enemies. You know, walk with a oneness and a connectedness of all beings. Yeah. Old Testament's, sorry. And yeah. I'm sure there's some good value in some of those Old Testament stories, but there's also a lot of really bad advice, especially if you live in a desert and you live in a forest ecology where nature is taking care of you and dropping food on your lap so you can put it in your belly. Okay, I'm home. Gotta go. Bye. I hope something was helpful in that. So if you want me to do some more structured talks, I'm happy to. These are really just me clarifying ideas, getting stuff out, allowing these ideas to percolate in the world. So I appreciate if you watch this stuff. Thanks for dealing with my all over the place communication style.